My name's Mark Coreth. I'm a bronze sculptor. I just love working with bronze. Bronze is a material that has been used throughout history. It is beautiful, it's magic, it feels good, it lasts forever. Ice is a material that is beautiful to carve, but it's so fragile, it's so delicate. Little rise in temperature and it starts to melt and change. Bronze won't change, the ice will change. As a sculptor, the combining the two, forcing them together, is wonderful. What happens is that if that's bronze beginning to appear here, the ice around it immediately starts to melt away from it. And so you get these shapes, beautiful shapes that I'm not in control of it, which is fantastic. It's nature controlling it, the warmth being drawn into the bronze, melting it, and the air that swirls around it, and the water that drips through it. That's all sculpting it. You can imagine this ice in one big tank of water, but with a bronze skeleton inside. As it freezes, it expands by 10%, but that bronze skeleton is static, so it'll freeze around the skeleton. And the danger is you then get huge pressures. And so if there were huge pressures in the ice, when you start to carve it, you can get an enormous crack. Big bits will just fall off where you don't want it to fall off. So it's a case of having to layer it up, layer by layer by layer. You'll also find that as it goes in, a lot of the minerals will collect in one area, and that comes out in colour. But that's in a way rather lovely. This yellowness is surprisingly like the colour of a polar bear, so I'm very pleased with it. Also, you'll find in here lines, and that's made by the air bubbles. They're rather beautiful because they almost form the sort of hair of the bear. I think the hardest challenge one has on a piece of sculpture like this is when you first have that big block of ice and you look at it and you think, where is the bear inside that block of ice? Whatever size it is, the sculpture is finished in your mind before you begin. If you can achieve that, then you are going to win, because you should then be able to see inside that block of ice your bear. But nonetheless, I have to admit, it's quite scary when you just look at it and you think, okay, where shall we begin? You just must remember that bear that's in your head and see it in that block of ice and be brave enough just to attack it. I knew I had to take off that much off the back, that much off there. I knew roughly where the legs were going to go, in fact, accurately where the legs were going to go. It was a case of finding the direction that you want to put the hole between one leg and the other, finding the angle of the head, and just taking off big chunks of ice. Bit by bit, the shape gets revealed into it. You've got to try and sculpt the whole thing in one. It's almost like trying to do everything at once. So it's tick, 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 and this side, and then that side, and then this bit, and then come back to this, and do a bit more and more and more and more and more until your bear appears in the sort of shape and the movement that you want it to be. I had a huge block of ice here, much bigger than a lot of ice sculptures done. You do need to take huge areas of the ice off, and so I've used several different instruments for that. The chainsaw is surprisingly good at cutting big, flat bits off. So we've used an electrical chainsaw. It's very useful for cutting a hole right the way through a lump of ice. But actually what I like to use is a very, very sharp spike on the end of a stick. If you get a sharp spike, a needle, and push it directly into the ice will just shatter away from it. Otherwise, I like to use a big wide chisel, but as sharp as you can get it. If it's sharp, it'll just slice through the ice very smoothly. It's not a case of jabbing it. It's really a case of just, it's like a knife through butter, just taking it off. And then otherwise we use smaller and smaller chisels to get the detail. This is a fairly unique piece of ice sculpture. Ice sculpture doesn't tend to have anything inside it. My concept here has a bronze skeleton inside it, but you can't see where the metal is inside the ice. The ice was frozen over 6 weeks. It's actually quite quick, and so if it freezes quite quickly, it becomes very sort of milky. You can't see through it. If you do carve in and hit that bronze, two things. One is it'll just take a chip off your chisel. It'll blunt your chisel so quickly. And the ice chisel really needs to be quite sharp. And the other thing that will happen is you've then exposed the bronze to the air, and that'll start to conduct the heat. If you have to make a repair, you do very carefully by having a smooth ice, 2 sheets of smooth ice with some water in between, put it together, and it glues. It'll very quickly, it'll fuse together. Sculpture is a language. It's a language that everyone should be able to understand. The fun part has been working with the likes of Peter, with Jack, with the whole team. And we've been doing it as an adventure together. That is fun.